we're gonna have a little bit of a trig review, and I know for some people it's been forever since you've taken trig. Some people just are total rock stars at trig. So if you are confident in your ability to use SOHCAHTOA, feel free to skip ahead a little bit. So you might hear a lot of people say SOHCAHTOA, and I've encountered a couple of people who don't know what that means, and it's very confusing if you don't. So for a second, we're gonna talk about that. SOHCAHTOA. So what SOHCAHTOA allows us to do is, it's a mnemonic that allows us to remember how sine, cosine, and tangent work in a right triangle. So what happens is, if this is our angle, I'm just going to call it theta. Theta is what you usually use for an angle you don't know. You can then use this mnemonic to figure out what the sine of that angle is, the cosine, and the tangent using that triangle. So the sine of that angle becomes the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So the way this whole thing, SOHCAHTOA, is the first letter is the trig function, the second letter is the numerator, and the third letter is the denominator. So it turns into the sine of theta is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The A stands for adjacent, or like next to. So when you draw a triangle, you have your angle. You know which one the hypotenuse is because it's opposite the right angle. You know the opposite one is talking opposite this angle, so it's the one that's not touching it, it's over here. And adjacent is the one that's touching it. So typically when you're doing this, unless theta is the right angle, your adjacent and your hypotenuse should be on either side of your theta, and opposite should be across from it. So what this means is, if I know values, let's say that I know that this is a 3, 4, 5 triangle. That means that I can use those to find that angle right there. So if I want to use the sine, I would just take the opposite value over the hypotenuse, which is, the opposite is 4, and the hypotenuse is 5, which is 0.8. So your calculators have, if you have a graphing calculator, it has this really nice button that looks like this. It's actually your sine button, and right above it is written, right here in this like void space, is written, okay, sine to the -1. That does not mean 1 over sine. That's usually what to the -1 means. What that is shorthand for is what's called the arc sine, or the like anti-sine. It's the sine and the sine to the -1 undo each other. So if you wanted to solve for theta here, you would have to take, it's called the sine inverse also. Sine inverse of 0.8 equals theta. You also have the same things for cosine and tangent. I will tell you that sine and cosine are the most commonly used unless you need to find the angle, and then you actually use tangent a lot.